You didn't know about my first gig. My first gig was being picked up by some kids at church, at a church, a little funky church I was going to, who worked at Channel 68. I'm sure it's not even on the air anymore. And they were all young and they wanted me to come do helpful household hints because I looked mature at the ripe old age of 27 or something, 29 or something. So my first job was doing helpful household hints. Every time my daughter sees something even remotely related to helpful household hints, I get the text about it until this day. Remember when you started, Ma? All right. So, how did I end up on television? As I mentioned, I went to this little church, and there was this very tall, elegant woman named Janice Davis, and she was a producer at Channel 5. And so I hired somebody, some photographer, paid him $200 a day to come let me do a consumer report, a regular fake news report, and a fake medical report. We put that on the video, and I went to see. I made an appointment with her, and I said, "I have a video I would like you to see." She looked at it, she laughed a few times, and she said, you got a little something here. You got something. I see a spark here. And 2 days later, I get a call from her. She wants to know if quickly I could get ready and go down to the Boston Ballet because they have a new choreographer. Frank Gavrouche is sick. Who knows where Janet Langhart was? I don't think she was there at that time. It was her predecessor. Didn't know where she was. So they needed somebody to go stand by a ballet bar, put on a tutu, and interview the new choreographer. Never done it a day in my life. Well, when you stand on street corners and tell people about singing your songs, you know how to talk. So I had a great interview, and a few days later, and $125 a pop. I was asked if I could go to the armory and go up in a helicopter, rappel down, and say, "Welcome to Armed Services Day." Well, I rappelled out of the helicopter. And so then years later, 2 or 3 years later, I was working at Leslie College. I ended up with a job that was way beyond my wildest dreams too, at Leslie College, where I directed their in-service education program for teachers for 4 or 5 years. And during that time, I'm sneaking off to work these day shift shots at Channel 5. And one day, Janet Langhart became the host. She was lovely and gorgeous. I mean, just drop dead gorgeous. She was married to Secretary of Defense Bill Cohen. She one day was asked to start going at nighttime to do the lottery pull. And she said, and she left a note under the desk that reportedly said, under the door of the boss, and reportedly said, "I will not do this job. I quit." And she went to a job at Channel 7. So I'm sitting there, and I had filled in for her a couple of times. So the boss calls me in. "You know what, Holmesy?" My name was Janet Holmes at the time. He said, "I believe you can do this job. I'm going to let you have it for 13 weeks. And we will go on a national search. And when we find somebody, then you can go back to dayside reporting." I said, "Great." Well, 5 years later and double the ratings, I was still by some fluke sitting there doing that. And that's how I ended up with Frank Gavrouche. And the boss said to me, "Look, you don't have to try to fill Janet Langhart's shoes." Was that a relief? He said, "You just fill 100% of your space sitting next to Frank Gavrouche and do everything you can to make him look good." And that was my mandate for all those years.